Ever get that feeling, like you're living in a movie? Those crazy coincidences that just seem too perfect to be random.
Right, those moments that make you think, wait, is the universe trying to tell me something?
That's exactly what we're diving into today. Synchronicity. Those meaningful coincidences that make you wonder if there's a deeper order to things.
It's not just about everyday coincidences, though, is it? Carl Jung, the psychologist, saw synchronicity as this fascinating link between our inner world, like our thoughts and dreams, and what's happening around us externally.
So, less about winning the lottery twice and more about those nudges that feel significant. Like there's this famous story about Jung and one of his patients.
Oh yeah, the one where the patient's describing a dream about a golden scarab beetle.
Exactly. And as she's talking, a real golden scarab beetle flies in through the window.
It's like, what are the chances? And we've got a whole stack of sources for this deep dive.
Laid on me. What are we
Yeah.
digging into?
We'll be looking at David Richo's book, The Power of Coincidence, plus a whole bunch of historical accounts, personal stories, all sorts of stuff. We'll even explore how this idea of synchronicity connects to the trickster archetype.
The trickster. Okay, you're going to have to explain that one. But first, let's break down synchronicity itself because it sounds like it can show up in a lot of different ways, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Think about the Titanic, for example.
The Titanic,
Yeah.
as in the ship.
Yep. Apparently, several passengers had sudden changes of plans or felt these strong premonitions warning them not to sail. Were those just, like, random anxieties, or was it something more?
So in that case, maybe synchronicity was acting as some kind of warning or guidance, like a cosmic, hey, pay attention.
Exactly. But it's not always that dramatic or life or death. One of our sources talks about this woman who ordered a red dress online.
Okay, I'm picturing a fancy red dress.
But when the package arrived, it was a black dress instead.
Weird mix-up.
And it turns out her mother passed away that same day. It's like life was preparing her for mourning, even if she didn't consciously realize it.
Wow, those stories give me chills. Makes
Yeah.
you wonder. Do these things happen to everyone, or are some people just better at noticing them?
That's a great question, and there's no easy answer. Some folks believe that we all experience synchronicities, but it takes a certain kind of mindset to really recognize them.
Like what? Being super observant.
Maybe. It's more about being open to the possibility of deeper meaning, looking for patterns, connections, a sense of curiosity about the why behind events.
That makes sense. And some of these synchronicities can seem pretty insignificant at first, right?
Right, but then later on, it's like, whoa, that was actually huge. Like with Abraham Lincoln, the president.
Goodness, Abe. What do you do?
Well, he bought this random barrel at an auction, just a regular old barrel,
Okay.
but inside it turned out to be full of law books.
Law books.
Yeah, and those books ended up shaping his whole career and influencing his decisions as president.
So what seemed random at first actually held the key to his whole future.
It's like those moments where we're on a path, even if we don't fully realize it at the time.
Okay, so we've got these big life-altering events, but what about those smaller, everyday glitches in the matrix? Like déjà vu. Or when you randomly think of someone right before they call.
Ah, those are fascinating too.
Are those considered synchronicities as well?
They could be. Some folks see déjà vu as like unresolved issues from the past bubbling up to the surface. Maybe your subconscious is trying to tell you something.
And those random thoughts about a person right before they call?
Who knows? Maybe there's some kind of subtle energy exchange happening that we don't fully understand yet.
I love that idea. Okay, so we've got warnings, guides, subtle nudges. Our sources also talk about dreams and answered prayers. How do those fit into this whole synchronicity puzzle?
Dreams can be powerful, right?
Yeah.
Full of symbols and messages from our subconscious.
Totally. Sometimes I wake up feeling like my dreams were trying to tell me something, but I can never decipher what.
Yeah, the interpretation can be tricky. But there are some famous examples of dreams seeming to predict the future, like with Abraham Lincoln.
Lincoln again. What was his dream?
He apparently dreamed of his own assassination just a week before it happened. Pretty eerie, right?
Definitely gives you chills. So maybe if we could learn to understand those dream symbols, we could gain insights into our waking lives or even our future.
It's possible. And what about answered prayers?
Yeah, what about those? Are those just lucky breaks, or is there something more to it?
Some people believe they're moments where our deepest desires align perfectly with our destiny, and the universe steps in to make things happen.
Okay, I can get behind that. But now you got to tell me more about this whole trickster idea.
Ah, the trickster. It's not so much a literal being like some cosmic prankster, but more of an energy, a force that shakes things up.
Give me an example. What would a trickster synchronicity look like?
Think of those classic cartoons like Tom and Jerry.
Love does.
The underdog in this case, Jerry, always seems to outsmart the more powerful character, right? The trickster is all about disrupting expectations, reminding us that things aren't always what they seem.
So it's like the universe throwing us a curveball, forcing us to think outside the box and adapt to the unexpected.
Exactly. It can be frustrating, but that chaos often leads us to grow in ways we wouldn't have chosen for ourselves.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all this fits together. So we've got synchronicities as warnings, guides, playful nudges, even those trickster moments. But how does all of this tie into our relationships, especially romantic ones?
Ooh, that's where things get really interesting. Think about those meant-to-be stories you hear about.
You mean like those movie-worthy meet-cutes?
Yeah, where couples meet in the most unexpected ways. It feels like fate brought them together, right?
Totally. But it's got to be more than just that initial spark, right?
Right. These relationships often bring up stuff within ourselves that we may not have been aware of otherwise. Like they're meant to teach us something.
So these relationships are pushing us to grow and evolve in some way.
Absolutely. This is where those Jungian concepts like mirroring and projection come in.
Mirroring and projection. Okay, break those down for me.
So mirroring is finding partners who kind of reflect back our own needs and desires, which can be really helpful in moving towards self-acceptance.
And projection, what's that all about?
Projection is when we see our own qualities, good or bad, in other people. Sometimes those qualities are things we haven't fully acknowledged within ourselves yet.
Ah, so it's like we're projecting our own stuff onto the other person.
Exactly. And while that can get messy, it's also a huge opportunity to learn and grow.
So even those challenging relationships, the ones that really push our buttons, could be part of this grand synchronistic plan.
Absolutely. They force us to confront our shadow side, those parts of ourselves we tend to hide.
Interesting. So working through those relationship challenges can lead to some deep personal transformation.
Definitely. That all ties back to this idea that synchronicity is about pushing us toward wholeness, you know?
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture. But one thing that still trips me up is this whole idea of free will versus destiny. If synchronicity is guiding us along a certain path, do we really have a choice in the matter?
That's a question that's been debated for ages, and we probably won't solve it today. But maybe it's not about one or the other, you know? Maybe it's a dance between surrender and choice.
So we're both following a path and actively shaping it at the same time.
Exactly. And that brings us to the connection between synchronicity and time. But we'll dive into that in the next part of our deep dives.
All right, we're back, and my brain is doing backflips after all those synchronicity stories.
It's a lot to take in, right? But it's fascinating stuff.
Totally. And we left off on this idea that synchronicity and time are somehow connected. That's where we're picking up, right?
Yep. It's a pretty mind-bending connection, and it really challenges our usual way of thinking about time.
So how exactly does synchronicity mess with our perception of time?
Well, it suggests that past, present, and future might be more intertwined than we realize. Like they're woven together in this tapestry of meaning.
Okay, so time isn't just this rigid, straight line.
Right. Think of it more like a flowing river, you know, with currents and eddies.
So maybe synchronicities are like those moments when something from the past or even the future kind of bubbles up to the surface.
Exactly. And our sources talk about this concept called kairos. It's a Greek word, and it basically means the right time.
The right time. So like perfect timing.
Yeah, those moments when everything seems to align perfectly. It's that feeling when you're in the right place at the right time and things just effortlessly click into place.
Ah, so like those times when a door seems to open at the exact moment you're ready to walk through it, it does feel like destiny is at play in those moments.
It does. But then there's the flip side of that, what some people call asynchronicity.
Asynchronicity. Okay, what's that all about?
It's those times when no matter how hard you try to make something happen, the timing just feels off.
Like when you meet an amazing person, but you're both in relationships and it just leads nowhere.
Exactly. Those can be tough experiences, but they often teach us about patience and surrender.
So sometimes it's not about forcing things, but about trusting that the universe has a different timeline in mind.
Exactly. And sometimes those periods of asynchronicity are actually opportunities for growth, even if we don't see it at the time.
Makes sense. So we need to pay attention to both kairos and asynchronicity, those times when the timing feels perfect and those times when it doesn't. But how do we learn to actually tell the difference?
It's a tricky one, but it often comes down to listening to your intuition, that gut feeling that tells you whether something feels right or not.
So, trusting our inner voice, even when it doesn't make logical sense.
Exactly. But now let's talk about destiny. That seems to be a big theme with synchronicity, right?
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. How does synchronicity point us towards our unique path in this lifetime?
Well, a lot of folks believe that synchronicity is like a compass. Those seemingly random events and encounters can actually be like breadcrumbs, leading us to who we're meant to be.
Like we're all on this hero's journey, and the universe is dropping us clues along the way.
I love that analogy.
Hmm.
But it's not about some predetermined script, It's more about discovering our true selves, embracing our unique gifts, and expressing those gifts in the world.
So it's less about following societal expectations and more about aligning with our own inner truth.
Precisely. And those breadcrumbs often lead us down paths we never would have expected.
That's exciting, but also kind of scary. How do we know when we're actually on the right path, though? How do we tell the difference between what our ego wants and what our soul truly desires?
It's a journey of self-discovery, for sure. It's about paying attention to what brings us joy, what lights us up from the inside out.
So noticing those activities or experiences that make us feel truly alive.
Exactly. And also paying attention to those synchronicities that seem to confirm we're headed in the right direction.
Those aha moments when everything just seems to click into place.
Exactly. It's about trusting those moments.
This makes so much sense. So it's this constant process of checking in with ourselves, being open to those nudges from the universe, and not being afraid to take those leaps of faith, even when it feels scary.
Absolutely. And remember, it's not always a smooth ride. There will be challenges, setbacks, times when you doubt yourself. But that's all part of the process.
So even those challenges are opportunities for growth. Our sources also talk about the importance of recognizing our shadow side. Can you explain what that means?
The shadow side is those parts of ourselves that we tend to hide or deny. It's the stuff we don't like to look at, the negative traits, the fears, the insecurities.
And why is it important to acknowledge those points of ourselves?
Well, sometimes the people and situations that trigger us the most, the ones that bring up those uncomfortable emotions, they're actually reflections of our own shadow.
So it's not about blaming others, but looking inward and saying, okay, what is this triggering in me?
Exactly. And often, those shadow aspects actually hold hidden gifts and potential.
Wow, I never thought of it that way. So even those parts of ourselves that we judge or reject are actually part of our destiny, part of what makes us unique.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that there's a purpose and a meaning in everything, even the things we perceive as negative.
This makes me think about the whole debate of fate versus free will again. If we're meant to confront our shadow and learn these lessons, does that mean we don't really have a choice?
That's a big question, and honestly, it's one that philosophers have been wrestling with for ages.
So no easy answers there, but our sources seem to suggest that it's not an either a situation. It's not fate or our free will.
Right. It's more about finding that balance between surrendering to a greater plan and actively making choices.
So we're co-creating our reality.
Exactly. And maybe those synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences, are those moments when our choices are perfectly aligned with that greater flow of the universe.
Okay, now we're getting into some deep stuff. But it makes me wonder, is there something even deeper going on here? Some underlying force connecting everything?
That's a great question, and it leads us to this fascinating concept called the unus mundus. But we'll save that for the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, we're back for the final part of our deep dive. And I gotta say, my mind is officially blown. This whole synchronicity thing is way deeper than I ever imagined.
Right, it really makes you question everything you thought you knew about reality.
Totally. And last time you mentioned this concept called the unus mundus, something about everything being interconnected.
Exactly. The unus mundus, it's Latin for one world. And it's this idea that beneath the surface of all these seemingly separate things, there's actually this fundamental unity.
Okay, so more than just saying we're all connected, like in a feel-good hippie kind of way.
It's deeper than that. Imagine like an invisible web connecting every thought, every action, every being in the universe.
Whoa. So synchronicity could be those moments where we get a glimpse of that web.
Exactly. Those times when the connections become so undeniable that we can't just brush them off as coincidence.
Like, I'm thinking of those small world moments, when you randomly meet someone who knows your childhood best friend, or you end up in a place you never thought you'd visit, and it feels like it was meant to be.
Perfect examples.
Hmm.
And the more we pay attention to those synchronicities, the more we start to see those patterns of interconnectedness popping up everywhere.
It's like learning a secret language, a code that reveals the hidden unity behind everything. Pretty trippy stuff. But if everything is truly interconnected in this way, does that mean we have less free will than we think? Like, are we just puppets in some cosmic play?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And one that's been debated for centuries. But what our sources seem to suggest is that it's not about a lack of free will, but rather
About what?
about understanding that our choices have ripple effects. Those ripples extend way beyond just our own little bubble.
So our actions affect the web, and the web affects us. It's all this constant back and forth.
Exactly. It's both beautiful and humbling, right? Even our smallest choices can impact the world around us in ways we might never fully grasp.
This whole deep dive has really shifted my perspective.
Yeah,
It's not just about noticing these wow moments of coincidence, but about a whole new way of seeing the world.
I hear you. It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of everything and understanding that we play a role in co-creating our reality.
Totally. But now I'm wondering, what can we actually do with this information? How can we use this understanding of synchronicity to live better lives?
Well, it starts with being present, paying attention, noticing those seemingly random encounters, the unexpected opportunities, those gut feelings that we often ignore.
So not just brushing things off as coincidence.
Right. And our sources talk about keeping a journal to track those synchronicities. Writing them down can help us reflect on their meaning, notice any themes or patterns.
That makes sense. What about those of us who are, a little more spiritually inclined? Any practices that can help us tap into this interconnectedness?
Oh, absolutely. Meditation, yoga, spending time in nature. Anything that helps you quiet the mind and connect with your intuition can be super powerful.
So it's about approaching life with a sense of openness, curiosity, and maybe even a little bit of wonder.
Exactly. And trust. Trust that you're not alone on this journey and that the universe is unfolding exactly as it should.
I love that. So for our listeners who are ready to embark on their own synchronicity adventure, what final thought would you leave them with?
Remember, you are not alone. The universe is conspiring in your favor, even when it doesn't seem like it. Trust the process, embrace the mystery, and be open to the magic that happens when you align with the flow of synchronicity.
Beautifully said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
Likewise. And to our amazing listeners, until next time, keep those eyes peeled for those meaningful coincidences and be ready for the universe to surprise you in the most delightful ways.